Okay, I'm going to do a deposition on the matter which is incredibly important, but also incredible. It's just as a matter of its own. It is simply beyond belief for many people. So I am swearing under the laws of the state of New Jersey and the United States of America that everything I say here is true in its entirety and as far as I can understand, and omits nothing of importance to the matter at hand. So help me God. And I am doing this under the penalty of perjury and the laws of the state of New Jersey and the United States criminalizing false swearing. Now, the matter basically has escalated because people have disappeared in this area, and I imagine I'm a suspect, having been living for about 16 years in this belt that runs along the Delaware American Canal and out to Route 1. And I've witnessed also this change, these changes occur, and I wouldn't understand them and would think that I had lost my mind, except when I returned to Florida, where I had moved in about 2000 in hopes of reestablishing myself there as a small manufacturer. And but I didn't, and I returned here, leaving all my stuff in storage in Florida. But on one of my return trips to Florida, I saw 3 people taken by alligators, and then, having returned again the next year, believe that 2 more were also taken on a lake. These people lived on a lake. The first 2 that were taken were water skiers. So you're going to say that I'm going to talk about alligators on Lake Carnegie and the Delaware River Canal, and I must drink or something like that, and I don't drink, and I am going to talk about the possibility that the alligators that I saw were real, and that the people are being taken, and the largest groups at risk are dogs and small children. And alligators naturally go after dogs and children, and this is what they said in Florida. They said other things too, that basically the alligators are smarter than dogs, and I also decided that because they're cold-blooded, they continue to think even when people are driven into their houses and basically wherever they're going to be. That's where they are. The alligators are still hunting them. And that's why I saw in Florida a woman taken from her house by 2 alligators, and I saw on YouTube a picture of an alligator trying to get into a house. I saw on YouTube a video of an alligator climbing a 6-foot fence. It was like an 8-foot gator. And they get about 15 feet and weigh about 1,500 pounds in Florida. And that's enough to basically carry a person or a deer back to the water. Anything that bothers them, anything they want, they drag into the water. That's their first instinct. So, and houses are not a tremendous barrier for them. I'm very cautious in giving you this information because there are at least 2 or 3 activities that would be affected if there was an alligator scare. One, of course, is the canoeing, and I saw 2 canoes upset as if they had been upset by alligators, and a raft broke into pieces as if an alligator had just decided that it was able to do that, a big alligator, and just broke it to pieces. But I'll get to that later. And then the other is the rowing on the lake, the crew. I haven't seen them in the past year or two, but if there are alligators on the lake, you won't have crew. If it's like Florida, they just do not have anything less powerful than an airboat, a V8 airboat, or a bass boat, big 60 horsepower bass boats. Nothing less powerful goes out on those lakes. No canoes, and if they do try to go out in a canoe, they're likely to get upset by an alligator if the alligator is around and has been watching and stalking. So basically you wouldn't have, if there was a real alligator scare and the authorities stepped in and decided that they had enough proof, people missing and sightings, then you wouldn't have crew, you wouldn't have the canoeing, and even the jogging along the path, the Delaware and Canal path, would be considered at your own risk and possibly hazardous. Okay, the alligator that I think I saw was released in 1959. This was at this time, my mother bonded me to Mr. Frailinghausen, who he and his family went to Florida to live in a house on the lake. I was used to water their greenhouse while he was gone, and did so religiously every day. When they came back, it was like they were very upset, and I couldn't understand why. And then a year or two later, they sold their house in Florida. Many years, decades later, I asked Rosalind, Mrs. Frailinghausen, what had happened in Florida. And she said the men had come around and told them that they had to move the house back from the lake. So that sounds like an alligator problem. And, you know, that's how she understood it. She was, you know, in the back. So they came back, and that was my first knowledge at all of the existence of alligators and the threat they pose to people. And now that I believe then that someone on the Basin Road, Alexander Bridge over the Delaware Canal, that area, someone in that neighborhood either brought a pet alligator back from Florida or somehow got a pet alligator, and that was released within a very few years. But it did not die, and it wasn't a threat until perhaps 15 or 20 years ago, about the same time I returned. Before that time, it could have been living exclusively on turtles and other things. There's beaver down there. I saw a beaver without a tail. So so that basically began to mature and metamorphosize into a human hunter or deer hunter about 2000. Their teeth change and their habits change. And by that time it would have been about 40 years old. So since that time, as I said, I believe it was responsible for the upsetting of 2 canoes which I watched, and a raft, the breaking up of a raft which 4 boys were trying to navigate in the Delaware Canal. I don't know if anybody was hurt or what happened to the people. Then again, I believe it took a dog. They tend to, when you swim in the water with them, they don't always chase you. They can chase you, and I have been chased. and I saw a YouTube video of a young man being chased and taken. And this was not unlike what I witnessed in Florida. And, but they also rise under you or in back of you. And I don't know how they do this, and as I said, a lot of people just won't believe me. And that's well and fine. But I was in the canal when people were walking, and a party came by with a small dog, and they went down to the water, and I was in the water. And the alligator rose under me, and I actually reached out and touched it with both hands and tried to hold on to it because I knew what it was going to do next. And it broke free from me. I lost my touch, so to speak, my hold on it, which was very risky, by the way, because they can turn, and I've seen this also on YouTube, they can turn on you in a second and yank you down. So it was very stupid of me to even try to hold it, but it swam right over to that dog and took it, pulled it right in, much to the horror of its owners, a small dog, and cut the leash with its teeth, and it was gone. So, stupid me, I was glad to get out of the water, and I don't know what they thought or anything, and I really didn't care because my life. And it was the same in Florida. I've kind of finally gave up in Florida once too, and I just went in because this guy was in trouble and I was trying to save him. And I thought it was my last moment, but I wasn't taken. So there was also the story of the sheriff coming to give me papers to get off the land, which the university was claiming at the time, and I don't know what they're claiming now, but they're not claiming nearly as much as they did at the time. And I have a long relationship with the university. They came into our house when we first moved here. I was a boy of 7, and some alumni students stole my father's Picasso, which would be worth about $20 million. But anyway, that was a long time ago, but that made me part of everything, along with just growing up within a block of Prospect Street and Engineering Quad. So anyway, the sheriff, they got the old sheriff, I can't remember his name, but the retired sheriff to come out with the papers, and he knew me from some bankruptcy trouble I got in about 25 or 30 years ago. And they say he was taken, and I was sitting about 50 yards away. He disappeared, and they blamed me. And I was sitting about 50 yards when he came over started to come down from the train tracks, if it's the same guy, and if I have the identification and the reason he was being there right. And I looked away. I was sitting on the platform, which covered some sort of sewer outflow pipe that came from the old industry on Route 1. And I looked away. I wasn't looking at him, and all of a sudden I heard a splash. That's all. I looked over. There were these tiny, tiny ripples. But that's the way it is with alligators. Whenever they take an animal, whenever they take something, whenever they're around, they make almost no ripples. So he could have been taken by the alligator, and that could be the closing of that case if you have no evidence to the contrary. And my witnessing is I witnessed what I thought I witnessed. So that's an important case. Now, there's a young boy, a Chinese boy who lives on the corner. I'm pretty sure the alligator has taken him, or he's in danger, and the alligator's stalking him. Anyway, that would have been, if there was an incident, it was right after the snow. And when the snow started to come, a breathing hole opened up outside my tent. I wanted to, and I've told this already to the authorities, and where the snow was melting as it came down and forming a hole in the snow, this is 6-8 inches of snow, so it's quite obvious that there's this warm air coming out, and that was the alligator, and I believe the alligator's hole is underneath, near where I was camping. It's underneath the train tracks, because that's loose, porous, airy, hygienic material, that coal waste, that leached coal waste. And I've noticed from digging earthworms in it, they're very healthy, very active, because of the presence possibly of arsenic or some other compounds which keep them clean of fungi and bacteria. So that would keep the alligator clean too, and healthy. Because if it had buried itself just in our native Jersey clay, I don't think it would have been very healthy by now. It probably would have died by now, because of the just the clay is not that good for reptiles. So so that's about where we have it. There, I did see two heads off. This was in 2001. 2 heads off, alligator heads off of the boathouse, and I did see one off of the aqueduct. But if there was a released pet, and I'm pretty sure that's the identity of the current problem gator, it was in 1959 or thereabouts, and it's grown up in that area and knows almost everything. As for catching it, and I know they have had alligator hunters down there, the university, because I did report this right away back in 2002 or whenever, when I first saw them, and was aware of what they were from my experience in Florida. It's going to be very, very difficult to catch, having grown up in the area. They're uncanny creatures, and if they refuse to be seen, that's all it takes, because they have to be hooked, and if they refuse to take a hook or throw the hook, the only thing remaining would be to poison them. And I just think with all the people and all the poison that would be needed for such a large animal and everything, I just don't think it would work. I think you'd probably first poison all the vultures and all the birds, and then who knows what else. But I don't think it would work, but that's my opinion. You can pay anybody to do anything, as you well know. So so you might want to pay someone to get the gator. So that's my deposition concerning this matter, and I've made it because after having been taken as a suspect in the disappearance of this former sheriff and possibly others, and this is what I believe to be the root or the cause of disappearances in that area, and possibly accidents occurring where the canoeing is concerned, where the canoes are concerned. And again, these are businesses, and people depend upon them for their livelihood. So so everything must be done with extreme care and certainty. And this is just a beginning, I imagine, in what will be a 2 and 3 and 5 year search for evidence of the presence of this alligator and its depredations. So thank you. I solemnly swear that what I have said is true in its entirety and admits nothing of importance to the matter at hand, under penalty of the laws of the state of New Jersey and the United States that criminalize perjury and false swearing.